Welcome back to Armored Brush Minis. I'm Jeff, and in this episode of my How to Paint Warmaster Dwarf series, we'll be looking at painting a Gyrocopter. If you've watched my other videos, you'll know that my army will be supporting a Clan Angron blue and red scheme, and I think the blue metallic look on this guy turned out really well. As always, stay tuned till the end for some army shots as this project comes together. Firstly, I started out with Leadbelcher Spray from Citadel as a primer on this model, since it's almost completely made of metal. Then I put a nice coat of Highlord Blue speed paint from Army Painter on the hull of the Gyrocopter. I tried to stay away from the nose and tail of the model so I had less tidying up to do later. Next up is the copper metallics. For this I used Balthazar Gold from Citadel. This is a great copper color, and it's really a workhorse color across all my armies. I hit the bearded face of the gyro, as well as picking out little bits and pieces around the hull and tail. This works to break up the silver color and provide some interest to the individual details sculpted here. When working with multiple metallics on a machine like this, I tend not to come into it with much of a detailed plan. I like to work my way around and paint the different colors in places that look like they need it. I also tend to use a main color, in this place silver, and then a secondary color slightly less, here it's the copper, and a third metallic quite sparingly. In this instance, that would be our next color, which is the old faithful of the gold world, Retributor Armour from Citadel. This color really is my most used coat. It covers really well and reads really brightly from a distance when gaming. On the Gyrocopter, I used it for the delicate knotwork on the sides of the hull and nose, as well as on the hub of the rotors, as you'll see shortly. I also ended up painting some other parts of this color later, and it definitely added a lot to the final product. Be very careful on this step, because if your paint goes over in between the gaps and the knots, it'll be fairly difficult to tidy up. As always, just thin the paint a little bit, get a nice point on your brush, and take your time. This is probably the most intricate step on the model, but if you stay steady, you'll see it has a great effect. Now for a bright pop of color, I'm going into some Evil Sunz Scarlet from Citadel. This I use pretty sparingly since it contrasts so heavily against the colors we've been using so far. I only apply this to the edge of the Gyrocopter's wings as well as the rotor blades, which I'm going to be showing for the first time here. Not that I forgot about it or anything, that'd be very unprofessional of me. I did leave it off the main assembly on purpose though, since as you can probably imagine, it would dramatically complicate the painting process by having it fully assembled while trying to paint. While we're working on the wings, we might as well paint the canvas portions. Here I use Karak Stone from Citadel. It's a great like khaki kind of color, and I think it sells the canvas aspect pretty well. Just be gentle here cutting into where the red is from the last step. It's not so difficult to paint over the Karak Stone, but you will have to do 2 or 3 coats of the khaki to get a good result here. Next up is a wash of Nuln oil. You can watch it just settle in the recesses and really sell the metallic look. I only added this wash to the silver, copper, and gold colors, leaving the metallic blue untouched. It may have helped define some of the panels and plates more on the blue, but I really like how it came out, and I didn't want to make it too dark. Now we're getting into the fiddly small parts. I started out using more Evil Sunz Scarlet, and now Moot Green from Citadel on the wires or pipes on the tail. You can also see I went back after the wash to add some more metallics to the other details. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with these parts earlier on, but adding more gold and copper seemed to balance out the model a bit more. I used some Abaddon Black from Citadel on the different drive belts that are visible here. It's a very small detail and it's super easy to miss, but I believe it added some realism to the Gyrocopter, and shows how the machine would actually function if it was used in the real world. Now I started to work on the cockpit and the brave dwarf pilot crewing the gyrocopter. For the seat, I used Genestealer Purple. It's a very bright purple that really catches the eye, and I think it helps to draw attention to the pilot. Then his beard, being Dryad Bark, the seat belts and gloves were in Mournfang Brown, and his helmet details I painted with Balthazar Gold. Here, I went back in and carefully painted his goggles with Abaddon Black, and added more Balthazar Gold and Leadbelcher to the flight sticks and gauges on the seat pack. And finally, a little wash of Nuln Oil to tie it all together. The last step is to go around and pick out all of the rivets with Ironbreaker from Citadel. Ironbreaker is a brighter silver than Leadbelcher, so it stands out fairly brightly against the rest of the metallics. This is a totally optional step, but I did it because it really adds some interest to the metallic areas, especially the blue. These rivets are all across the hull, nose, and tail of the main body assembly, as well as on the hub of the rotors. There we have it. That's a fully finished Dwarf Gyrocopter from Forest Dragon for Warmaster Revolution. I think this model turned out great, and the blue and red color scheme is really starting to grow on me. I think next I paint the Dwarf Warriors, which I printed as Ironbreakers for a more elite tunnel fighter look, as befits Bellegar Ironhammer. As always, thanks for watching today. If you learned something and want to see more painting tutorials for different game systems, as well as this army series, feel free to subscribe and check me out on Instagram at ArmorsBrushMinis. Please leave any feedback or requests in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.